Nicole, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Hey, Nicole, how are you?
Yeah, good to see you.
Good to see you. So, Nicole is no stranger to Show Me the Money. She was on about a year and a half ago. I would say maybe a couple of years ago. So, many thanks for you to show up. I think it's an important topic, but I have to mention it. So, Nicole was lived in Altadena, and she lost her house to the fire. So, thank you for coming on under those circumstances. So, we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope everything is going well as it can go. But let's just jump
Yeah.
right in. So let's start with what this is all about, because last week my news feed was literally blasted with wage theft claims. There is some, you know, negotiations are happening now. So let's take it from the start. How did you guys do it? Because I know you guys were integral part as drivers of Rideshare Drivers United, were an integral part of this, of the ball rolling, get the ball rolling. And then we are here now after, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years. So give us a little bit color on how this all started, and then we'll get into what's happening now.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, Sergio and Chris, for the opportunity, and because this is so important. I want to start just with why wage claims, why wage theft. The first thing to know is that any place where labor is identified as having particular rights because you have a job, because you have a boss, in almost every courtroom, not just in this state, not just in this country, but around the world, people see us under the law as due labor rights, because the honest to God truth is these algorithms are our boss. So it's not the same as having a human being breathe down your neck, but we know the phones are breathing down our neck and making us, work at times that we don't want to, because we have to chase a surge or a certain number of rides or whatever. And the way the law sees that is, that means we have labor rights. It means we're due minimum wage, we're due overtime, we're due things like unemployment insurance, workers' compensation, except in the case where we have a law like Prop 22 that says that forbids drivers and other app workers from being considered under labor law. And so the companies work really hard to get those kinds of laws passed, because they want to not have to pay us that money. And so everything before Prop 22 in this state, we were covered under labor law. And we all remember AB 5, which passed in 2020. It became effective in 2020. AB 5 would just codified the legal processes, court cases that said, hey, here's the conditions under which you consider people employees. And it's not about 40 hours a week. It's not about the boss telling you when you have to work. None of that. It's about that we are controlled by a boss. We do not set our own wages. The boss sets our wages. It's all of that stuff. So in any case, when AB 5 passed, though, we thought because there's not wiggle room anymore, the companies will, of course, have to pay us better. Didn't happen.
Well, I remember they ignored the law. They ignored it completely for that whole year after AB 5 passed. Actually, Uber tried to do some things to make us look like independent contractors. Like they gave us we could set our own surge multiplier, things like that to kind of make, but Lyft completely ignored it. I remember that distinctly. And then, So you go ahead.
Yeah. And I mean, the multiplier. The multiplier was very popular. Right. And people wanted to keep that. And it was sort of incentive for people to vote for Prop 22. And what happened when Prop 22 passed is they took it away. Right. So, yeah. I mean, you just if it's not in writing, if it doesn't make sense to you, it probably is a lie. So at the beginning of 2020, we were like, when are they going to do this? When are they going to make it so that we're actually getting at least minimum wage after expenses considering our wait time, all that stuff, they didn't do it. So you know what? There's this thing called the Labor Commission of California, and their job is to specifically stop employers that are stealing from employees. And they have a form that you fill out, and you say, here's how much I made, here's how many hours I put in, here were my expenses to do that. And we started filling those out. It's a lot of work. It's a PDF, you have to fill it in, and then you have to send it in and all that. And, we 100 people filled it out in the first 4 weeks. And we were like, this is not right. We know there's tens of thousands of drivers who would be filling this out if they knew about it. And so we made it into a web tool within 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks. 5,000 drivers had filled out those forms. Ooh. And because, it was drivers shared with us what their claims were. And those 5,000 plus drivers were owed more than $1.3 billion for that period of time. Wow. And that's billion with a B, right? So it was an incredible amount of money. Half of that was damages. When somebody steals from you, that's a damage. And so you get compensation for that. But if you just look at straight compensation, it's more than $600 million that we were owed.
So that's just the 5,000 drivers. That's
5,000.
So okay, so let's just clear this up. So the 5,000 drivers, who some may be RDU members, some may not be, they filed with the Labor Commissioner, correct? Mm-hmm. As wage theft, because we were considered to be employees of Uber and Lyft for 4 years until Prop 22 was passed. Mm-hmm. So for those 5 years, the way the calculations work, to my understanding, is that you need to get paid for all the online hours, because that hocus pocus active hour, whatever, that just means nothing, right? So is that what you guys are doing? Strictly taking the online hours, multiplying it with some sort of a number? What is that number? Is it minimum wage, or what is it? How are you guys coming up with this money?
Yeah. So the way we calculated that, and people had some ability to change the numbers how they saw it, because that's how that form works. But the way it works is how many hours were you actively working? And believe me, when you're waiting at Dodger Stadium for the game to be let out, that's work. It's value to the customer. It's value to the company. You should be paid for it. So it's your time on app. It's your time while you have a passenger in the back. All of that you should be earning at least minimum wage. Okay. In addition, you should be getting your expenses back. Right. And the way we calculate expenses for my day job, if I have to go to a meeting across town, I get paid my regular paycheck. But on top of that, I get IRS reimbursement for all of my miles, right? Okay. Right now, that's 70 cents a mile.
It's actually 75.
Honestly, that's more than a lot of us offered for
2025. It's 75 cents a mile.
Yeah.
So this went to court. I know it did. First time from my recollection is that state attorney general, the city attorney general of San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Francisco all joined, went to court. Uber appealed. I think it was 2023 that appeal was thrown out, right? So they said this could proceed to go to trial.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So give us a little bit of color about that, how that worked out.
Yeah. So what happened is those individual claims were pulled back. The Labor Commission decided to sue on behalf of all drivers during that time period. And then the Attorney General in the 3 cities came in and said, doing the same thing. The Attorney General is also suing for unpaid unemployment, because even though we at that time were eligible to receive unemployment, the companies weren't paying into it, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff tied up in that. But in addition is 4 years of drivers' pay. So those became 2 separate lawsuits. And then there's also PAGAs out there, where private lawyers are taking on these kinds of wage claim cases for drivers, right? So There's a lot of cases that were very similar. The first 6 months or so, the the companies were really pushing for all of those to be in the same courtroom. That's fine. It took a while for that to happen. And then what you're talking about is they made a very specious argument, full of baloney argument, that was that the state couldn't enforce their own laws because we had signed, arbitration mandates, right?
Yeah.
Well, no. Like, guess what? The state of California gets to, enforce their own laws, and one way is to get people's money back if it's stolen. And so that went, but because they had to entertain this stupid argument, I went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court sent it back down. And that's when these claims finally, 4 years later, they started talking about the stuff in court again. And that's how they landed in settlement negotiations in January, right? And all of this is publicly available on the court site. You can see the dates that they have planned. What's going on in there is secret. So that's why we have to get activated, right? We cannot sit back and be silent right now, because as well-intentioned as the state is and the three cities, they're very strong and they want drivers to have fair pay, right? They don't understand the industry like drivers do.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get there. We're going to get there in a minute. We're going to get there in a minute. So a lot of, cats flying. I can't even watch it, but drivers in California. Okay. This is not just for the 5,000 drivers that filled out the RDU website form.
Right.
This could be potentially, look, many, as you know, in rideshare, people last about 6-8 months. Most quit, right? After 6-8 months.
Yes.
But the estimates are that it could be up to 250,000 drivers could be benefiting from this, full-time, part-time, whatever you were. Okay. So if you're in California and if you drove between the years of 2016 and 2020 up until Prop 22 became law, you're going to be entitled to something. We don't know because they're in negotiations. And what you said, Nicole, is very true. The politicians may have the right heart, things in their heart with with right thought process. But since they're not drivers, because this happens, by the way, like this happened with the state AG settlement in Massachusetts. It happened in New York. They have their heart's in the right place, but they don't know the business, and they're in the room with a bunch of sharks, right? Yes. So I'm hoping that you're part of it, or I'm glad to go testify to whatever is necessary as far as drivers are concerned, because I know the business as much as Uber knows the business. There has to be a voice in there that directs the politicians in a way that they don't even get cornered, bamboozled, and we need to get the drivers whatever they're just due. So I'm volunteering. So here it is. So I know they're in what do you call those? Some not settlement negotiation, is it mitigation or whatever it is? So it started yesterday, I think, right? On Monday.
Well, they had their first meeting towards the end of January, right? Okay. And this was the second one, and it was yesterday. It was the 31st. And they're having separate meetings with Lyft and Uber, and it's all on the court website when they're scheduled. So just, so that just to know what this process is. I mean, anytime you go to court, usually the judge will say, well, why don't you try to do this out of court first? And so you have to participate in that, because you have to show good faith that you're willing to try to work it out. Right. And so that's what this is. It could be decided in one of those meetings, right? Or they could schedule out more meetings. We don't know. I mean, I would imagine it will take a while to get through a settlement agreement. But
well, I mean, look,
they could come out today and say it's done.
If it's 250,000 drivers and you're 5,000. If you guys came up with just on the online hour, not the damages, $650 million, multiply that or just extrapolate that to 250,000 drivers. This could be like tens of billions of dollars.
Exactly.
So that's why I'm thinking, okay, the other thing I know is I follow Uber and Lyft as close as anybody. I'll ask you this question. Maybe you know, but when was the last time Uber and Lyft went to actual trial about any lawsuit? Any over hundreds of times?
I
Never.
mean, they often settle.
Never,
They
right?
often
Because
settle.
they don't want to, during discovery, all their dirty laundry is going to come out, right? And they're just going to settle. Now, I hope the AGs and the city AGs do the right thing and don't cave and don't go with like some lowball number. But I don't see it being a lowball number. So if you're again in California, my email is sergio@rideshareguy.com. We'll give you guys, obviously updates on this. But so what is your best guess? And so if the talks fall apart, they're going to go to trial, right? There's going to be a trial date set.
Well, and here's what I would say. If the companies continue to lowball them in settlement, the state and the cities have to go to court.
Okay.
We cannot let these companies off the hook for violating California law in the state that they're, where they grew up in. Like, this is not okay. And the thing that scares me is that $1 billion sounds like a lot of money.
Yeah.
But $1 billion is what 5,000 drivers were owed. Yep. And, if we're not out here yelling and screaming and about it and saying, no, this is tens of billions of dollars, the state might not realize that would be like giving us $200 checks when we're owned 200,000, right? Yeah. So we have to be willing as a state to go to court.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. And again, if I'm still doing this, I definitely want to be some sort of witness on that, because I drove from 2016 to 2020. I want my money.
One thing I always say is work smarter, not harder. If you aren't using the Solo app, then you may be working harder. So let's change that. Download the app, link your accounts where you can manage your income, track your expenses, and project your taxes. Not only that, but you can plan by optimizing your time, make more, and even guarantee your daily pay with guaranteed earnings. Download Solo and begin to work smarter, not harder today. Link is in the description. All right, let's get back to it.
So I know you guys did, to keep this in the news or to keep this going, obviously, there were some protests done, right? You were part of it in downtown last week, and there was one in San Diego. There was one in San Francisco. Look, people, I mean, RDU does great work, and Nicole, even with all her personal issues, and you guys must understand, she lost her house in the fires, literally, like burned to the ground, okay? She's doing God's work, helping drivers and the community of drivers. So when they call for action, please show up, right? I mean, it doesn't cost anything to be a member of RDU, period. You just go fill out the form, become a member. I'm a member. I get emails from them, automatic emails. And they have the opt-out clauses. They have great things on their website that they have done. So I'll give you the floor in closing, right? So please keep us posted whenever, protests are happening, because we need to keep this in the news.
Yes.
And we need to make sure that the drivers who drove their cars into the ground, their bodies into the ground for 4 years, that they get what they deserve.
Yeah. And, what I want to say too is that, what we've seen other states do is sometimes settle for something they think is great. Like the state of Massachusetts, strong attorney general, absolutely on driver's side, settle for $34 an hour minimum. Now, we all know that means $7 an hour after everything else, right? After your wait time, it's not good. And drivers actually knew that, but the attorney general didn't know how it worked. So, so drivers are making less money in Massachusetts than before this settlement, that's a shame, right? Yeah. And we know what drivers need is a rate card that is high enough to ensure a decent hourly that includes, that makes up for the fact that we're not getting paid unless there's somebody in the back, that makes up for the fact that our expenses are very high. So we need a good rate card, like $175.60, right? That's the kind of rate card we need in California, so that we can keep an apartment, so that we can put food on the table, so that we can take a weekend off and go with our kids to Disney. Like, Those are the things that drivers don't do anymore. We drive ourselves into the ground to keep food on the table, and we don't even see our kids. So you can't do that. So I just want to say they have to do the right settlement. It has to be for the right things. And don't give up all the money, because that's real money. Most of us are in debt from the transmission that went out during that time, or the new car we had to buy when we still had a note on the other one that died. Like, it's not right. We really are owed a lot of money. So, so I would just say that they have to go to court if they think they're not settling right, and don't fall for the baloney that other folks do. And then you're absolutely right. We have to be the loudest, noisiest, most annoying group of drivers in California right now, saying that it's not okay. We had the protests last week. We're going to have more, right? We're going to time them to make sure that the folks making these decisions hear us. We have a petition going right now. It's a great way to, do something easy, but like, we need to get thousands and thousands of people on this petition who are drivers. I think we opened it up today and we already have 1,000, but it should be 10,000 drivers on there, and it's at the top of our webpage, which is drivers-united.org. So it's at the very top of our webpage. You can go in there and sign. And once you sign, you also will get, updates on this stuff as well. So, so I really would encourage people to do that. And Sergio, thank you. If we sit back and wait for other people to go yell about what's really going on in this industry, it's not going to happen. We have to get ourselves involved. We have to get other people involved, right? Go get other people to sign the petition so that they're in the know, So
we'll put the link in the show notes. The worst comes to worst, just go to www.ridesharedriversunited.com. Period.
It's drivers-united.com.
Okay, drivers-united.com, and then.
.org. Oh my gosh. .org.
We'll put it. We'll put the correct one in the show notes. But so go sign the petition. Go become a member of RDU. Again, no charge. They do great work. Okay, we don't always agree, but 9 out of 10 things we do agree. I've known Nicole for how long have I known you now? 5 years, 6 years?
At least 5 years, man.
I've been to protests with her, and we've done it all. And this last one I couldn't go, but next one, promise you, I'll be there. Yeah. And again, this is not a strike. This is not those things. This is trying to get potentially 250,000 drivers. They're just due. That's it. We're not asking for more or less this or that. Mm-hmm. This is the law. They broke the law. They got to pay. Yeah. And I hope we can push this forward, and they don't pull the rug. I mean, these companies are strong, Nicole. They have very strong lobbyists. They're